It's August 2nd, 2022. I went to the infusion center through Catholic Health again today. They gave me the take-home report, which I was going over. I don't remember them saying to take B12. They said it's in the report. When they gave me the report, I didn't really read it. Again, they're the ones with this medical thing going on. So, now I'm looking through it, seeing what else I had missed since the second one of the infusion. The red blood, the RBCs went up in count. So there's some indication that I'm like not losing, I'm actually increasing. There is something on here called an RDW, and they space S.D. I have no idea what that means. It's a C note. It gives a range, and it says comment, unreportable abnormal RBC distribution. No idea what that means. And there's no number to like ask questions on. It says my platelets. Now I asked the woman while I was there, and she said, oh, it's 5. And I'm like, okay. Like, again, she gave me this 5 like it was no big deal. But when I look, it's actually 533, and the max range is 400, and I'm at 533, which means it's, and the low end is 150. So 150 to 400, and I'm at 533. So my platelets are still extremely high. I'm concerned about a parasite. I say such a thing to this nurse. And she says to me, now I've said it several times to the New York State healthcare workers, being nurses, doctors, technicians, whatever. Anyone who will listen, I'm like, I'm concerned about a parasite. I was like, my platelets have been extreme. I've had chronic anemia. Nobody's fixed. I was like, I have high platelets. I was like, my iron was in single digits, and my blood volume was so low while my platelets are extremely high. It concerns me. And the nurse today says to me, well, you haven't traveled out of the country. And I'm like, no, I haven't traveled out of the country. Here's the problem in this day and age. I don't need to travel to Africa or some like third world country where there's contaminants everywhere and parasites are expected. They have been traveling here, and they're in and out of this country. Like, I don't know how they're getting in and out. But now my homeland is not safe. Not the drinking water, not anything. And I'm suffering from this health problem. And it's a real concern. And let's put it this way. Here's conflicting consumer getting their own straight answers. It says on here, eosinophils are present. Now, in my microbiological studies of like Princeton textbook, it said eosinophils are indicative of a parasitic infection. On Google, it conflicts that. On Google, it says perhaps it's an allergy. Well, all other signs and indicators are showing my iron is being depleted by something. Is it in a parasitic cell replication cycle where it's stealing the phosphorus iron as the binding agent to oxygen, and my body's just not able? I mean, my eosinophil range seems like right in the middle of what the expected range is, except you're not expected to have a parasitic infection, especially for as long as I've had it. without any doctor like saying, I mean, I even met with the hematologist who had these results, and there was no, I even asked, and I left a sample at the Catholic Health Hospital, and I said, I'm concerned about a parasitic infection. I left a stool sample, not just blood, but stool sample, and they didn't even sample the sample that was left behind in the hospital. They didn't even bother running the test, or if they ran the test, they didn't put the results in the Catholic health system for patient follow-up so I could get the actual results, which seems to be a consistent deficiency in the New York State health system. And if I didn't have the schooling that I did, I wouldn't even know to question these things, because it just has it here on a leukocyte, like, spreadsheet of numbers and whatever. My basophils are incredibly high. They're 1.2 out of a range of 0 to 1.0. I'm over that. I'm at 1.2. So again, it like hides in these nondescript places. But if I'm walking around with a parasite that's going to knock out one of my vital organs, I think it's incredibly important that I find out. I mean, but this is the level of disgusting that's going on inside of New York at the moment. And again, like, and I'm reading through, and it says to check the notes. And then the notes are just these, with a hashtag, no less, of RBC morphology. And it has, like, this really long word that makes no sense. But then again, the word cyno, C-Y-A-N, is, I mean, if it's cyanobacterium, it's like a blue-green algae look, and I've heard it referenced as blue before, yet in the B12 category, it comes as a red liquid. No idea how that works. I mean, I've mentioned that before. But this is really, I mean, like, it is almost like you can't even stay healthy on your own in this healthcare system. I mean, even with my education, and even asking the doctor, and I said to the nurse today, now the nurse is, and this is not in a judgmental way, she is probably the size of my mother at the moment. My mother is waddling back and forth because her hips hurt, because she's not functioning in homeostasis any longer, which is a concern of mine. But again, I know I'll just retreat from ingestibles, and I'll be careful, and I'll just drink meal replacements until I get my caloric intake within a range that then induces healthy weight loss. About 2 pounds a week is what I've heard them say is natural, so you don't lose elasticity and all this other stuff. Linda won't even enter that realm of possibility. She, like, it's too, the amount of work and fortitude to put into just replacing food with a drinkable rather than a chewable. And I get that mentality because I live with her, and I know she won't do it. I know I am capable of doing it. I've done it before, and I'm doing it now. Don't know where that build difference is, but that's not really what I'm looking for. My point is that the actual nurse in this facility, and I spoke to several nurses, they all say the same thing. I'm like, it's almost like I'm probing what their level of healthcare and education is, and what they're actually trying to lecture the public on. Now, this particular nurse, because I disagreed with her, in a very polite way, might I add, dismissive but polite, wanted to get me to the dietitian, who left at 4 o'clock, so I couldn't speak to them. Oh, well. But she was like, you can't just stop eating. I'm like, no, I can. And I have. I was like, I have no desire to eat with whatever's going on. I was like, and at this point, I'm going down to meal replacements where it's organic greens and it's proteins and whatever else is in there. I was like, so this way I can see calorically how much I'm ingesting so I can keep a journal of it and I can follow the progress of my weight loss. And if as things arise, it's homeostatic, so I'm not introducing foreign allergens. I'm trying to stay within something measurable for whatever's going on within the anemia category. And she's like, no, you don't, you have, so you're not eating at all? I'm like, well, I eat once a day. I was like, but I, again, know the caloric range of that. I was like, and then if during the week I get so hungry, I was like, I'll allow myself to have something. But for the most part, no. I'm drinking per day and that's it. And I was like, but it's at a meal replacement. So it's whatever. So she's just, I'm like, so adamant that it wasn't all right. I mean, again, another problem in this health loss, again, at other places of, I wouldn't expect if there was a premier in the room, or let's just say President Joe Biden, I really would not expect the staff, knowing that Joe Biden was in the room, or President Joe Biden was in the room, to walk by and speak in his presence about other people's mammograms and all this other stuff that's like health, but not associated with what people are doing in the oncology center. Like if it's a private consultation, it's one thing, but it's not. It's walking through the corridor, speaking while people are trying to receive treatment for all sorts of things. And it's just, I just felt it was in bad taste. So again, it's just this culmination of what's going on, but at several different key point levels. The fact that I can't get straight answers before I went to Dr. Trotta, I was out with Dr. Patel for years, like almost 10 years. Man never said anything other than I have anemia and that he wanted to test it and that my platelets were high. Never suggested it was a parasite, never suggested an antibiotic, an antiviral, an antiparasitic, nothing. Just left me in deterioration pretty much. I don't understand how they hold medical licenses. I don't. When they keep their patients sick and symptomatic and coming back for more tests, more money, more this and that. I mean, perfectly healthy, should have been perfectly healthy 30-year-old, but slowly between 30 and 40 deteriorating. And as the doctor, they have no either medicine to curate it, or, I mean, it's really foul on like such an egregious scale. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. On top of what this is for me, I'm in this Union Jack, by the way, or flag, or whatever it's called. I look in Linda's living room because I've been having, like the house a while back, I caught it on video. It was almost like a mini earthquake. It was shaking. And so I'm cognizant of these energy disturbances in the area. I know that my health since I've been here has deteriorated even more from when I was in Patchogue. But now I'm looking at Linda and Lou's wall the other day, and I actually can see cracks. It's like a hairline fracture as I follow it down. And then there's a vertical one that goes from here all the way down to there. And it runs, where's my finger? It runs like this all the way down to the floor. Which is even more disturbing because that's like geospatial and engineering wise, I'm concerned with the residential structure, the energy that's inside the residential structure, considering there's the cable box, there's the Alexa, and whatever else Linda has, whatever, between like a refrigerator, anything that pulls electric, and has a frequency. And then however it gets pulled into the residence, which they used to say it was by cable, then it was by digital, but now they go off of Bluetooth. So is that part of the radiological problem? I mean, I look, like my eyes right now, I can see how affected. I mean, I can't even heal my chin right now. It's so horrible. So there's that. I heard on the radio today that they were speaking about these promoters and these entertainers. They were speaking in context so roast beef doesn't get upset with whatever's going on there, in one of several whatever. They were mentioning that back in the day, they had these boxers. And at first, they were talking about first it was Jewish boxers who learned that they were really great boxers because they had to stand up against their Irish and Italian neighborhood bullies or like whatever. And I'm like, that's interesting. But again, that's part of the Big Five's history. So whatever, on they're all one nation as far as I'm concerned. Then it went into this Latino conversation, and they went through names and stuff, which means absolutely nothing to me, because I don't know any of them. And they said that as these, they use the name Lewis, but I would have no idea who that is, and I know it's not my Lewis. So as they were talking about that, they're like, and then they would take, now these are the illegal immigrants. So they would take these winnings that they got through this boxing promotion, just as a for instance, so roast beef doesn't get upset, or any of the other incredibly like obnoxious, like I just heard Tiger Woods turned down $800,000 to play golf. I'm like, that $800,000 to play one round of golf. Are you crazy? I mean, this is how absurd and disgusting it is around here. So anyhow, so this boxer would take his winnings and then he would invest it in civics lawyers to write them civic law and weave it into some civic fabric. And I'm like, but they're not part of the original 5 allowable. How could you have illegal immigrants paying for civic fabric to be weaved in to something? I mean, again, this is part of such a gigantic problem. I was just talking to a neighbor about this today. I was like, talk about wake-up call. I was like, you know, I have a different blood than most of whatever. I said, I went to school for it. I know that if if there's positive whatever, it could hurt me. The guy goes, yeah, no, my neighbor. He says, no, I know. He goes, I know. And I was like, oh, you do? I was like, no, because my father had an argument with me this morning, no less, at the French workshop. He goes, Nicole, he's like, you can't think of it like that. He's like, you know, it's diverse, it's this. He's like, but, you know, everybody, it's a melting pot. I go, here's the thing, Lois. That argument does not work. This isn't racist. This isn't anything. There is the allowable 5 of ancestry and heraldry that if I got in trouble, one of those 5 normally would be able to, in an ABO situation, contribute the correct blood to me, and I could contribute back. Problem is that in the POS category, they contribute to me, I die. So now I have a problem with what is filling in and surrounding me, because luckily I went to a Nassau County hospital and it happens to sit inside of an area that has the kind of people I wish I could be around all the time, but I don't have the money. So there's no like interaction with any of us. But luckily they had the kind of blood that I needed that was a match. I was like, the problem is that is like a dwindling, like I'm Atlantis. I'm on the Atlantic coast. It's like the lost, and I said this to Kevin, I was like, the lost city of Atlantis. I was like, that's like my generation, like the lost tribe. I have no idea where my generation went. I have no idea where they disappeared to. I have no, like the people I went to elementary school with, where'd they go in the world? I have no idea. How would I even find that out? Any of the high schools I went to, I'm not friends with any of them. But this dwindling population is a real serious problem. So there's that. So the fact that you have these people who somehow networked together in their illegal status and their criminality, and then started paying for civic fabric to be woven in their favor. Now, these are all POS. And, like, these aren't even the POS, like, on the cuspid. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's just, it's a real serious problem. I see that some guy, Russell, died. And I'm not talking James Russell, because that is a whole nother story from a whole nother time, from a whole nother set of circumstances, in a whole nother decade, where there was still hope for my future, until now, where it's just like, what the hell did you all, where'd you all go? So, a different Russell, different color Russell. And so, this particular Russell just died at 88. He apparently played on the Celtics. I had no idea about Boston and the Celtics. He's talking about the Herald in Boston. Didn't even want... And I'm like, how did you go from not... This man just died. He's 88. In that short time frame, how did you go from all the players were white on the Celtics with one black man to today, where I don't even know, is there even a white person on the basketball team anymore? Even one? I mean, like, I don't follow basketball, but every time I turn it on, I don't see any spotlight or highlight of any of the original five allowed through Ellis Island in these northeastern parts. So it gets a little confusing, especially with history being whatever, torn as it is. And no, there's definitely an Alexander Hamilton, and they have descendants in that family, and the same thing with Thomas Jefferson. And these are people I've met. So, all things being equal, I'm a little confused and upset about my level of care when it's so important to a lot of different areas. The radio report was on somewhere around 4:45 to 5:15, and it was 99.5. I couldn't get, like, my video camera working because I was driving at the time, leaving the oncology center. But it was on audio on the FM at 99.5, where this I guess historian, sports historian, was speaking on the game and how the transition from, like, the Jewish League of Boxers, and they said some names, which none of them sounded familiar, and then it went into the Latino version, and then the civics uprise and, like, the civic movement, and how they were influencers by money, paying for, I don't know what, things to change. Doesn't seem like things are moving in the right direction. especially by the care, my personal care throughout my life frame and my children's. I can't speak on behalf of other people. I have no idea what other people go through. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.